There are stories of objects that hold more than just history. Objects that carry with them a darkness, a curse. This is the story of a mirror that, once gazed into, brings a shadow that follows and never leaves. Welcome to the story of the shadow in the mirror. In a small town tucked away in a forgotten corner, there's an antique shop known for its oddities and curiosities. The shelves are filled with relics of the past, ancient clocks, porcelain dolls, dusty books. But one item stands out among them all, an old, intricately framed mirror with a surface tarnished by time. Locals avoid it, speaking of the mirror in hushed tones. They say it reveals more than just your reflection. At night, when you're alone, if you stare too long, a shadow begins to take form. And once you see it, it begins to haunt you, following you from mirror to mirror, drawing closer each time. Most people dismiss the story as nothing more than a superstition, a ghost story meant to keep children away from the shop's dark corners. But for those who've seen the shadow, it's a curse, one that they can't escape. Meet Jenna, a collector of vintage items and a skeptic of the supernatural. She's fascinated by old things, their history, the stories they carry, and one rainy evening, she finds herself drawn to the antique shop, browsing through its dusty aisles until her eyes fall on the mirror. The shopkeeper watches her closely, a strange look in his eyes. That mirror has stories attached to it, he warns, his voice barely a whisper. Jenna brushes it off, thinking it's a sales tactic, a way to make the item seem more intriguing. She buys it, placing it carefully in her car and taking it home. That night, Jenna hangs the mirror in her bedroom. She admires its intricate frame, the way the shadows play across its surface. But as she turns away, she catches something, a faint shadow in the corner of the mirror, just behind her. She turns quickly, but there's nothing there. She laughs it off, chalking it up to her imagination. But the next night, the shadow returns. She's brushing her hair, the room dimly lit, when she sees it again, a shape, dark and indistinct, standing just behind her in the reflection. Her heart races as she turns, but her room is empty, silent. She tells herself it's just a trick of the light, maybe a shadow cast by the lamp. She tries to ignore it, but as she glances back, the figure remains, clearer this time. It's tall, shrouded in darkness, with eyes that seem to bore into her, even though they're nothing but shadows. Jenna's breath catches, her pulse quickens, but she shakes it off, telling herself it's nothing. Days pass, and each time she looks into a mirror, the shadow is there. At first, it's distant, lingering at the edge of her vision, but with each passing night, it grows closer, inching forward, as though it's reaching out, waiting for her to notice. By now, Jenna's fear has grown into a cold dread that follows her everywhere. She avoids looking into mirrors, but every time she catches a glimpse, the shadow is there, closer than before. It's in her bathroom mirror, the reflection of her phone screen, even the glass of her car window. She tries to research the mirror's origin, hoping to find an explanation. But there's nothing. No records, no history, no trace of it online. Frustrated and terrified, she tries to cover it up, draping a cloth over its surface. But even then, she can feel it, as though the shadow is waiting for her to look again. One night, desperate for answers, she reaches out to a friend, explaining the strange occurrences. But as she describes the shadow, her friend only laughs, dismissing it as stress, imagination. Jenna tries to believe them, but the feeling of being watched is undeniable. Desperate to escape, Jenna decides to return the mirror. She drives back to the antique shop, determined to rid herself of the shadow that haunts her. But as she steps inside, her heart sinks. The shop is different. The shelves are empty, covered in dust. The shopkeeper is nowhere to be found. It's as though the store hasn't been open for years. Confused, she asks a passerby about the shop, describing the shopkeeper and the mirror. They look at her strangely, saying the shop closed down a decade ago. Jenna's blood runs cold. She rushes back home, the mirror still in her car, the shadow still lurking behind her. She stares into it one last time, hoping to understand, to confront the shadow. But as she looks, the figure steps closer, reaching out, its face merging with hers, its cold eyes locking onto hers in the glass. And as the darkness closes in, she realizes she is now part of the mirror's curse, bound to it forever. Would you dare look into the shadow in the mirror, or would you cover it and hope it never looks back?